Notice is hereby given of the regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Town of Westfield and the County of Union, New Jersey at 7:30 p.m. on the evening of Tuesday, November 17, 2015, in the boardroom of the Administration Building, 302 Elm Street in Westfield, New Jersey. The purpose of the meeting is to transact the regular business of the Board and to transact any other business that may come properly before the Board. At the conclusion of the public meeting, the Board will move to the second floor conference room to conduct a Board workshop. This is to advise the general public and to instruct that it be recorded in the minutes that in compliance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, entitled the Open Public Meetings Act, the Westfield School Board on Thursday, November 12, 2015, caused to be posted at the office of the Board of Education, located at 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey, and delivered to the Westfield Leader, the Star Ledger, the Westfield Library, the Town Clerk of Westfield, Tap into Westfield, and Patch.com, a meeting notice setting forth the time, date, and location of this meeting. Dana, can we have a roll call?
Rich Matesic.
Here.
Lucy Biegler. Mark Friedman.
Here.
Brendan Galligan.
Here.
Chris Langhart. Ginny Lights.
Here.
Gretchen Oleg. Here. Peggy Oster.
Here.
Mitch Slater.
Here.
Thank you. Ginny, could you lead us in the flag salute?
Sure.
Thank you.
Please join me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Announcements. Peggy, anything on your end?
I do. I have two announcements. One is concerning the winter concerts. There will be 23 winter concerts, and they will take place in the Westfield Public Schools, beginning with Westfield High School's orchestra concert on December 2nd, and ending with the WHS Chorale of Love Songs on February 5th. The entire schedule is posted on the district's website. Westfield senior citizens are once again invited to the final rehearsal of Westfield High School's winter choral concert on Wednesday, December 16th in the high school auditorium, 550 Dorian Road, from 11:30 to 12:20 p.m. For more information, contact the school community relations office at 789-4463. I'd also like to send congratulations to the following students who achieved perfect scores in September on ACT standardized tests, which are widely used for college admission criteria. Alistair Kapadia for mathematics, Brianna Reinhardt for writing, Kayla Derman for mathematics, and Greta Crandall for reading. And congratulations to those students who achieved perfect scores on the October SAT, Jessie Liu for writing, and Sarah Steiner for Math 2.
Right.
Yes. Congratulations to Westfield High School senior Jack Curry, who broke the school's rushing record of 2,797 yards set back in 1974. On Saturday, November 13th, Jack led the Blue Devil football team to a 49-14 score over Columbia High School, winning the NJSIAA North 2 Group 5 first-round playoff game. He also tied the school record for touchdowns in a single game and has scored 20 in the past 5 games. We wish the team, who has an undefeated season, continued victories.
More from athletics. Congratulations to 10 Westfield High School student-athletes who signed national letters of intent last week to play for universities. They include Steve Barmakian, who will play baseball for George Washington University, and Chris Rinaldi, who will play baseball for College of the Holy Cross. Tyler Roth, who will play tennis for Villanova University, and Brooke Schaefer, who will run cross-country track for Lehigh University. And the following student-athletes will play lacrosse. James Bollinger for St. Joseph's University, Claire Cassie for Penn State University, Owen Caldwell for Johns Hopkins University, Gwyn Devon for Vanderbilt University, Matt McElroy for the University of Denver, and Emily Shields, who will play for the University of Southern California. According to Athletic Director Sandra May Mary, Westfield High School averages more student-athletes signing national letters of intent than the national average, with our graduates representing 22 out of 27 athletic programs currently playing collegiately. She noted that the list of schools that these student-athletes will be attending demonstrates their incredible balance of athletics and academics. Congratulations.
Well, rooting for all those amazing athletes on the field, we got to talk about the high school band. This is big. Let's wish congratulations to the Westfield High School Blue Devils Marching Band for winning the U.S. Band's A-Class National Championship, placing first out of 10 competing bands in Division 5A from New Jersey, Maryland, New York, Connecticut, and Massachusetts with a score of 96.738. Westfield High School received awards for Best Music, Best Overall Effect at the competition held Sunday, November 8th in Allentown, PA. The 2015 Marching Blue Devils are under the leadership of band directors Chris Vitale and Trevor Sindorf. The student leaders for this season have been drum majors Albert Chen and Michael Haig, brass section leaders Ben Cook, Samantha Gargulo, and Brian Lawrence, woodwind section leaders Michael Bergman, Danielle Gabuzda, Nova Chi Kui, and Jack Ritter, percussion section leaders Jake Barrow, Lauren Brumfield, Javier Lara, and Zachary Modell, and color captains Ariana Alvarado and Kathleen Nogan. And apologies if I didn't get anyone's name exactly right. Our Board of Education will gladly pay special tribute to the marching band at our January 5th meeting. Congratulations.
And I'd like to tell you about Girls Learn International. The Girls Learn International chapter at Westfield High School invites you to join them in International Human Rights Day on Saturday, December 12th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. in the Westfield High School Cafeteria B. Girls Learn International, an organization that mobilizes students in the movement for universal girls' education, is hosting Why Human Rights Matter, a panel discussion on the impact of modern human rights violations. Panelists will make presentations on a variety of human rights issues, both in the United States and abroad. Speakers include Greg Dempsey, who is the Canadian Mission to the United Nations and is the chair of the UN Third Committee. Dana Edel, New York University and City University of New York professor and founder of Spark Movement. That's an organization combating the sexualization of girls. Frady Reese, founder of Unchained at Last, an organization that works to end child marriages in America. And a representative from the Armenian Relief Society, an organization that provides educational and humanitarian assistance to Armenians throughout the world. This promises to be a night of powerful discussion. Hope to see you there.
I do. From the Visual and Performing Arts, the Westfield High School Fall Drama is this weekend. The drama department will perform The Cherry Orchard by Anton Chekhov. Matinee performances this Thursday, November 19th at 4 p.m. with evening shows at 7:30 on Friday and Saturday, November 20th and 21st. This production is another example of the vision and depth of the drama department. Indeed, that's a difficult one to tackle. I look forward to seeing it.
All right, all Westfield Public Schools will be closed on Thursday, November 26th and Friday, November 27th for the Thanksgiving recess. On Wednesday, November 25th, schools will follow the early dismissal schedule. We wish our entire community a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. In addition, the next Board of Education meeting will be held on Tuesday, December 8th at 7:30 p.m. at 302 Elm Street. The agenda will be available on the Board of Ed's website by Friday, December 4th. With that, I would recognize the public for agenda items only. Seeing no one come to the podium, I'd ask the board to approve the minutes of the board meeting held on November 3rd, 2015, and the private minutes of November 3rd, 2015. Could I have a second? Thank you. Any comments or questions on the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you. I would then move to personnel. Mark?
I'd like the board to consider items, personnel items 1 through 15. 1 had some modifications and 15 was added at an addendum at your table.
Second.
Mitch, second. Thank you. Any comments or questions? Dana?
Rich Matesic,
Yes.
Mark Friedman,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Ginny Lights,
Yes.
Gretchen Olick, Peggy Oster,
Yes.
Mitch Slater.
Yes.
That's it.
All right. Facilities, I just note that we will be meeting on Tuesday, November 24th at 8 a.m. Agenda items include a proposed lighting proposal for Keeler, which would be in its initial stage for discussion in facilities, and anything else in normal course that comes to the committee. Long-range planning, Ginny?
No report.
Policies?
I'll report tonight in Lucy's absence. I'd like to ask the board to consider policy item number 1. Can I have a second, please? Jenny, thanks. So this is the mandate, or this is a policy that we did not previously have but are required to have because we do have food services to kids in the district. There were some changes at your table tonight, but they're non-substantive. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Dana?
Rich Matesic,
Yes.
Mark Friedman,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Ginny Lights,
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg,
Yes.
Peggy Oster,
Yes.
Mitch Slater.
Yes.
And I'd like to ask the board to consider policy item number 2 to affirm the superintendent's decision on HIV incident 16E03 for the reasons set forth therein. Can I have a second, please? Jenny, thank you. Dana?
Rich Matesic,
Yes.
Mark Friedman,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Ginny Lights,
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg,
Yes.
Peggy Oster,
Yes.
Mitch Slater.
Yes.
Nothing further. on
All right.
policies.
Curriculum, instruction, and program, Gretchen.
That's me again. I would like to ask the board to consider items 1 and 2 under the curriculum agenda. Can I have a second, please? Ginny, thank you. So the first are the field trips. I sent notes around over the weekend that talked a little bit about the 2 field trips and also the curriculum that are down for first reading, which are pretty much the drama curriculum at our middle school and high school levels. I don't know if anybody has any questions or wants to talk any further about them tonight. No? Okay. Dana?
Rich Matesic,
Yes.
Mark Friedman,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Ginny Lights,
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg,
Yes.
Peggy Oster,
Yes.
Mitch Slater.
Yes.
That's it.
All right, thank you. Finance, Mark.
I'd like the board to consider finance items 1 through 10. Second, please. Ginny, thank you. Any questions? Dana, please.
Rich Matesic,
Yes.
Mark Friedman,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Ginny Lights,
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg,
Yes.
Peggy Oster,
Yes.
Mitch Slater.
Yes.
And I have some comments I'd like to make to the public and to the board. And this has to do with some conversations we've had around the table over the last month or so about a possible bond referendum. So I'd like to address the board and the public tonight regarding high-priority facility needs in the district. The Finance Committee, of which I've been chairperson for the last 2 years, worked together with the Facilities Committee, the administration, and the entire board to determine how to address those needs, which brings us to where we are tonight. First, a bit of history. Our school district develops a 5-year facility plan. We do not make decisions hastily. We build a framework with long-range plans prioritizing those which are deemed most urgent. And we undertake as many projects as possible within our school budget or capital and maintenance reserve accounts. For instance, in the last 5 years, we have replaced boilers at Roosevelt, Edison, and Tamaqua, upgraded security in all schools, installed a vertical lift at Tamaqua, replaced gym partitions at Roosevelt and Edison, replaced all lockers at Westfield High School, renovated the high school's music room, and replaced floors and ceiling tiles in a number of classrooms district-wide. With financial help from the boosters, the district also renovated the Westfield High School main gym and the field house. At the June 9th Board of Education meeting, our business administrator presented a proposal for a bond referendum to support Priority 1 projects to benefit every school in our district. As explained at that time, Priority 1 projects are those things that need to be done so we can keep functioning safely and effectively, such as fire alarm systems and clock and PA systems. There are a number of advantages to seeking a bond at this time. Interest and construction rates remain low, and the district also has the opportunity to recoup 40% of the costs of eligible projects from the state of New Jersey through a program providing aid to improve school facilities. Since that time, we've convened with a group of citizens to review that proposal. The citizens group understood and supported the need for the Priority 1 critical projects. Given the current conditions, the citizens group also suggested that the district consider adding other projects to the bond. Specifically, the group discussed needed upgrades to the 2 intermediate school auditoriums. The Facilities Committee had in fact placed those auditoriums on the list just below the Priority 1 items for bond consideration. As a result of this citizen group input, both the Facilities Committee and the Finance Committee further considered the auditorium work and the funding needed to effectively support our student needs. Each committee felt strongly that if we were to spend any more money on the auditoriums, we need to achieve a comprehensive solution, one that resolves the problems with the acoustic quality, seating, air conditioning, etc. With further input from the Facilities Committee, the Finance Committee is therefore recommending a second question on the bond referendum to address the inadequacies of our 2 intermediate school auditoriums, in addition to the first question of the bond, to bond our Priority 1 projects. Basically, we're going to split it up into 2 questions, the first one being the Priority 1 projects, the second one being the work to be done on the auditoriums. Instead of adding the auditorium work to our original projects, the auditoriums will appear, as I said, on a second question on the ballot, because Westfield voters have made it clear to us in the past that breaking down proposals into multiple questions should be seriously considered. As we've mentioned many times at this table, large capital projects are regularly funded through a bond. In fact, municipalities do this on a somewhat regular basis, but school districts are required to hold an election for a public bond referendum. For the last few years, school budgets have had a 2% cap on the increase to the tax levy. No adjustment is allowed for facilities projects. As a result, school districts across the state have funded capital projects through bonds. On the November ballot alone, school districts as far north as Sussex County and as far south as Salem County presented bond referendum proposals to their constituents. The projects included renovations and upgrades to school facilities. Some were very similar to ours, such as upgraded fire alarms and HVAC and improvements for ADA compliance. Utilizing a vehicle, such as a long-term, low-interest rate bond, makes good financial sense for capital projects. And as I mentioned, the rates remain low. The timing of our district's bond on January 26, 2016, takes advantage of the 40% financial assistance from the state. As I previously mentioned, the timing of this bond also will be positively impacted by current low interest rates, and indications are that the rates are heading higher. As chair of the board's Finance Committee, I heartily support the recommendations of the Facilities Committee to address these urgent needs of our schools. The decision to fulfill some of our most urgent needs through a bond is in accordance with the model that the state has sanctioned for public school districts. The average age of our school buildings is more than 75 years old. It is important to keep them as viable learning environments and to protect the taxpayers' investment on those infrastructures. We estimate that it'll take about 2 years to complete the projects that Dana will outline for you shortly. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Dana.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little more details about each question. As Mark talked about question 1, that's what we've been calling the Priority 1 safety and infrastructure projects. So in that bond referendum, we have the replacement of fire alarms in 10 of our buildings. 2 of our schools, Roosevelt and the high school, had full replacements several years ago, so they're not included in this, but all 10 of our other buildings, including Kaler Field and this building, are included. Public address systems, we will be replacing in all 10 of our schools, so that would not happen in the other non-instructional buildings. The switches and Wi-Fi is going to be upgraded at all of the elementary schools. As we discussed in our operating budget presentations the last couple of years, we started with that project at the high school 2 summers ago. Last summer we did the intermediate schools. So next summer we would continue with the replacement. What we have done is put some of the costs in the bond referendum because some of the project, the cabling and the labor would be covered from state aid under the bond referendum. It would not be covered in the operating budget, and some of the equipment would be covered under state aid in the operating budget. So we're maximizing the state contribution to this project by splitting up the costs.
in the two separate budgets. So assuming that if the bond referendum did not get approved, then part of those costs would have to revert back to the operating budget come the end of January, February. We would be replacing multi-purpose room floors at 3 of our elementary schools. We're going to continue replacing boilers at schools. As Mark mentioned, we've replaced quite a number of boilers over the last number of years, but we have more that need to be replaced in the next 2 to 3 years coming up. Then we would be installing barrier-free access at McKinley and Roosevelt. Those are currently the only 2 schools where parts of those buildings are not accessible to a wheelchair. So by installing these vertical lifts, all of our buildings would be totally accessible. So question 1 is a total of $8.6 million. We had our financial advisors run various scenarios with interest rates and terms of bond sales. So assuming a 2.5% to 3% interest rate, which is actually higher than what we would expect right about now, a 10-year bond would cost about $62.83 for an average homeowner, and if we sold bonds for 20 years, it would be about $36 for an average homeowner. And those bonds would not be sold until we got to a point where the projects were underway and we actually needed the cash to move forward with awarding contracts. So question 2 is for the intermediate auditoriums. We are still working on these plans. We're working on all of the plans. Just to kind of backtrack a little bit about how this works. The architect will develop estimates for the projects. We have the plan of what we want to do. He goes through, he develops the estimates. He will submit applications to the state of New Jersey Department of Education for their review and approval. Then we move forward with the bond referendum. If the bond referendum is approved, we then go forward with drawing the schematics and preparing bid documents and all of that. So this is what is in the plan for the auditoriums, but this would probably be a project that would definitely not get done next summer because it would take time to fully look at what we wanted to do in the auditoriums and make sure we had the right sound engineers and everything else to make sure the work was done properly. So the renovations would include replacing all of the seats, including installing barrier-free seats, replacing the sound system, installing acoustical treatments, whether that's on the ceilings, floors, the walls. It would provide barrier-free access to the stage. It would provide electrical and lighting upgrades, including stage lighting. It's also including emergency lighting and ceiling lighting. Replacement of the floor throughout the entire auditorium, and both of the auditoriums would be fully air conditioned under this plan. Oops, sorry. So cost for part 2 or question 2 would be approximately $4 million. Again, assuming an interest rate of 2.5 to 3%. If we sold those bonds for 10 years, it would cost the average homeowner $29.39. And a 20-year term would cost about $16.88. And then, so again, just to go back to selling the bonds, if you recall, when we had the bond referendum for the roofs, we had estimated those roofs at about $13.6 million. And when we went out to bid and completed the projects, we actually spent about $3 million less than we estimated. So we only sold bonds for the amount that we needed. So there was no impact to the taxpayers that the estimate was higher. We wouldn't sell the bonds for that amount. So again, that's why we are estimating the cost here, because we don't know until we actually sell the bonds. But this would be the highest cost. If anything, it would be less than that. And so the timeline for the referendum. The applications are currently down at the Department of Ed. I actually just got a number of them right before I walked in here, but through email, approved by the state. Everyone that has been submitted and approved already so far has been 100% eligible for state aid.
Right.
So that means 40% state aid, but the whole project was considered eligible, so that's good. We expect to have the rest probably by the end of this week or early next week. We are required to notify the County Board of Elections 60 days before the election. So that would be next week. I think that's Thanksgiving Day, November 26th. So we would send those letters out this week, actually, to make sure that they're down there in plenty of time. Then December 8th, the board will approve the actual 2 questions. Our bond attorneys will prepare those. Once they get the approval letters from the state, they'll prepare the questions. If you remember from last time, they're very prescribed as to what it looks like. So you will actually have 2 separate resolutions that you will approve accepting their aid, and also authorizing the ballot questions. The ballot would be held, the election, would be held on Tuesday, January 26th. And then pending the approval of those projects, the referendum, the projects would start next summer and go into the following summer, possibly a 3rd summer, depending on timing. But I would say the majority of projects by the summer of 2017 would be completed. So I think that concludes. Oh, and just Mark talked about a lot of this in his opening statements, but the benefit of the referendum and the benefits of doing it now, many of those items, as you can see, are safety items to keep the schools up and running and keeping our students and our staff safe, protecting the infrastructure that we have. Many of the upgrades will be for educational and state compliance purposes. And it's fiscally a good time to move forward with these projects while we can still take advantage of the state aid. Interest rates are low, and we still see construction bids coming in at low prices. So we think it's a good time to move forward with this referendum. Anybody have any questions that I can answer?
Can you just explain, just for general public, how the 40% rebate from the state would work?
Yes.
So we wouldn't have to go out for 8.6 million, or?
No, we do.
Okay.
We get a referendum approved for 8.6 million. So let's just assume that we spend the whole 8.6 million for the sake of discussion. We would then sell bonds for $8.6 million. But every year in our operating budget, as we go to budget to pay that back, 40% would be in the form of state aid, so we would only budget 60% of the cost every year.
And that's additional state aid to
Yes,
the
that's
regular state aid that we
above
get
and
every year.
beyond,
Right, above
yes.
and beyond.
Correct.
And it's directed right toward paying back the,
Right. There's you have to use it for that, and then, yes, it would come directly to us. for
And this
that.
is a window that we never know when we'll
Right.
close.
Right.
Right, it's a timing.
Exactly.
And with the state of New Jersey in its own fiscal issues, that window may
Right.
close very, very
Right.
soon.
And interest rates, of course.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
can't say enough about interest
Yeah.
rates. The Fed's gonna make a move soon.
Right.
So Dana, just so I'm clear, when you, for example, on question 1, if you look at the 20-year bond term, you said it's an average of $36.60 per house.
Mm-hmm.
Is that at the 60%, or is that at 100%, but it would be less?
That's assuming it's assuming state aid on almost all the projects.
Okay.
So it actually, when our advisors did that calculation, they didn't want to use 40% in case some parts of the applications were not considered fully fundable. So I think
Right.
they used a 35% state aid number.
Okay.
But
So that's
we're
why you
probably
said
gonna
that's
get
sort of
actually-
a maximum.
yeah. But
Okay.
we're so far, and when we have almost all of them back, they've approved state aid on all the projects.
Okay. Thanks. It was a great presentation, and thank you for your comments, Mark. I've been on the Facilities Committee for 6 years. I've chaired the committee for several years and worked with most of you on the committee during some of those years. And we've done a lot in that time, the biggest project being the roofs, which was bonded, but also many projects that were done out of operating funds or capital funds, which in essence is the transfer of operating funds. And that includes things like boilers and parking lots and elevators or lifts, and things that are critical to the daily operation of our schools. But the buildings are old, and there's a lot more to do. And when the Facilities Committee looked at our priorities, we really wanted to just start with looking at just the critical points and putting those out to bond to make sure that we could get them done before failure. And we really did debate whether we should put in the next greatest need in our mind, which was the auditoriums. And the problem we've had with the auditoriums over time is that we spend money on them. We raise money, people help us raise money, we spend the money on the auditoriums, but it's not a great fix. Without a holistic solution to the auditoriums, you're never going to get the sound the way you want it, and the atmosphere for the performers, our students, the way you want them. So to say that the Facilities Committee and the Finance Committee were quite pleased when the Citizens Committee came back and said, hey, why don't you tackle the auditoriums, would be a tremendous understatement, because we really wanted to do that, and knowing that there was support out there for it, and knowing we could do it as a second question to let people decide in their own right, really made it sort of a win-win all around. So thank you to the Citizens Committee for that. And I'll just reiterate, as Dana and Mark said, given the environment on interest rates and the 40% payments from the state, we think that all around it is a good time to go out to bond these things that we need and we really want. So, Gretchen.
Yeah, I echo everything that y'all said, and I think that we have to keep in mind that we understand. We've been talking about the fact that this is the mechanism that the state puts in play for us for a long time, but I still think there's a cultural shift that has to happen with the community in terms of how they think about this and raising taxes, and that this is how we take care of our old buildings. And we're the key component, because this makes sense to us sitting in this room right now, but there's a lot of people who won't have this information and don't understand that we're restricted in terms of how much we can save for capital projects and how much we can increase our operating budget every year. So I would just encourage all of us to attend all those PTO meetings that we're liaisons for, any other community group that we sit on as liaisons, any opportunity that we have at the PTC meetings to talk about this and to talk about why we think now's the time. I think we have to take every advantage of it so that we educate as much as possible. But thanks to everyone and Dana for all the good work.
I noticed we mentioned a few times about the community members who were nice enough to serve on a committee and gave us feedback, and I do notice we have some members of that committee in the audience. I don't know if there's anyone. I don't know if the board's ready to open up the microphone for the audience, but maybe one or two of them would like to share their thoughts.
Sure, you're welcome.
No pressure.
Yes.
Please, if you just state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Amy Root. I live at 177 Harrison Avenue. Kids at the high school who were recently at Roosevelt School, so I've certainly experienced firsthand the need for improvements in the auditoriums. I was a bit shy about it. Other people on the committee were the ones who brought it forward and said, please consider this too. And it's great to see that kind of enthusiasm and that kind of willingness to kind of get the word out. Again, as Gretchen said about, and as you all have been saying, Mitch and Rich too, about now is the right time to do it. This is really the most prudent and fiscally responsible way that we have available to us to do it. But you're right, Gretchen, this is a kind of a sea change for a lot of people who are used to managing their household finances a certain way and may not realize that really this is the best way for schools to do it. So I encourage all of you all to, read up, ask questions of the board members. If you see me at the grocery store, I'm happy to answer questions too, because I've lived here a long time, and I agree this is a much needed project, and I'm excited that we're actually moving forward on it. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Anyone else from the public would like to comment on the bond proposals? All right. Anyone else from the board?
Yeah, I just want just to add to what Amy was saying about the auditoriums for a moment. I think many of us in town have sat in both of those auditoriums for a variety of different things, whether it's watching the wonderful shows that are produced there, whether it's any of the wonderful speakers that are brought in by the principals. We have one of them here tonight. And graduations and many things that have been there over the years. Clearly, I think anyone who has sat or fallen off of any of those seats understands that this is a critical need. And I'm really happy again that this was brought out by the community, because this is something that this truly is a need. This is something that really needs to be done. I would hope that all of the different aspects of the community that use both Roosevelt and Edison, including my, I guess, hometown Washington school community, who's been using the Roosevelt Auditorium every January for the last 67 years, something like that. I hope that they will be out there and let people know how important it is, and that this is something that we thought a great deal about, and clearly, financially, this is the right time. The state, I think it was the front page of the Daily News or the New York Post today, talked about issues in New Jersey, and New Jersey being one of the highest tax states, and also having the incredible deficit and revenue issues that are going on. So that window of 40%, I don't think is going to happen much longer. And again, as we talked about, interest rates are not going to stay this low. So the timing is great. The timing is great. I think the timing is right, and I'm in full support of both of these questions.
Thank you.
Then I think I would just like to add, I certainly agree with what Mitch has just said, but additionally, the first question, there's nothing there that's, everyone can agree with the auditorium seats. Anyone who's sat through anything there knows the importance of that. But the other issues are so important as well, both the safety of the school, the upgrades to the fire alarms, the PA systems being able to work and having a modern PA system, and trust me, the current ones are not modern. The fact that we still have two buildings where there are parts of the building not accessible. They're not accessible if you happen to transport yourself in a wheelchair. You can't get to certain areas of the building. These are things that are vitally important as well. And even the Wi-Fi in the elementary schools. I was at an after-school program focused on STEM just last week, and the students were really engaged, and they were coding, and all of a sudden there were too many people using it. And so the other level schools have had those upgrades, and if we're going to be able to help the elementary schools with the same thing, that's part of the first question as well. So it's a long list for the first question, I understand that, but trust me, not only Dana and myself, but the committees of the board have spent a great deal of time combing through and making sure, are these all things that are really important for our children? And they are, and that's why they're in there. So if you do have questions, please ask any of the board members, ask me, ask Dana. And again, I agree, we have to be out there and speaking with groups, sharing the information, and being able to answer questions. So we'll continue to work on that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Nope. All right.
Finance is done.
Thank you. Excellent. Legislation, Brendan, any report?
Yeah, actually, I have a brief report tonight. The legislature is back in session after a marathon year-long recess for campaigns and elections and whatnot. They sent two bills to the governor's desk, which he signed, that do affect us. One is a bill that prohibits the state from withholding state aid based on park test refusals. And the other is, again, dealing with park tests or similar tests, prohibits the use of across-the-board standardized testing for kindergarten through second graders. There's limited testing you can do with regards to special ed and placement and those kind of things, but no across-the-board kindergarten, first grade, or second grade standardized tests. And that's it.
Thank you. Technology, Mitch, any report?
No report tonight, thanks.
Thank you. I'd ask the board to note the notes for the record. Any unfinished business? Any new business? Any liaison reports? I would recognize the public for questions and or comments on any topic at this time. Sure. Please just state your name and address at the podium. Yep, absolutely.
Hello, everybody. Hi. Liz Mahali, 1029 Harding Street. So I came today. I'm actually missing the dance preview, so if I want to sign up for a dance, I'm in trouble at the Washington School. But I thought it was really important because there's been a lot going on at the state the past month and a half. a lot of stuff's gone on. So I kind of felt like it was important for me to update everybody with all the things that are going on. So I thought I'll kind of go through a list and then ad lib it at the time when I get to it. So we already discussed the two bills that were signed into law. Another one is a board regulation change for certification for public school teachers. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. They're making a change in certification for public school teachers. They're going to add multiple training in all types of classes with at least one in a special ed setting. They're also going to mandate 175 hours of clinical work that is done before they can teach, and require them to complete an assessment showing how well they can plan a lesson. They're also only going to receive certification if they show competency through statewide achievement New Jersey education evaluation, which is based on observation, test scores, and student progress. A lot of the colleges noted many concerns over these additional requirements because they felt that the costs and the excessive time added on for the teacher certification would discourage people from becoming teachers. The charter school teachers will remain where they need just a BA and to pass the praxis. There was also discussion regarding increasing salaries for charter school teachers so that they can attract more charter school teachers. So that was one of the new regulations passed by the school board. The other one was the cut scores for Park for graduation. The state of New Jersey determines the assessments needed to meet graduation requirements. And they determine the cut scores for the grade 11, Algebra 2, and Geometry section. They will have a cut score of level 3, or what is referred to as 725. Grades 9 and below, including Algebra 1, will have a cut score of 4, which equates to 750. That's on a 5-point rubric, so only people that fall into ranges 4 and 5 will be considered passing. And as you can imagine, this is done on a bell curve. So what you're saying is that the above average group of students will be labeled passing. So anybody who's in the main portion, like you know how a bell curve is, the large portion would be considered failing. The bottom towards the tail ends, the top two tail ends will be considered passing. Obviously, that brings a lot of questions into play as to why they do this, but that's what it is. It's important to note also that they have offered 8 different options for graduation, 8 different student assessment options to meet the graduation requirements, and students are only required to meet the passing benchmarks on one of those 8 options. You can find those on the Department of Education website, or I have a list here. I don't know if anybody's interested, but I can try and read through. Find my... These are all my notes of supporting documents for what I'm saying. Okay, so you can take Park ELA grade 9, Park ELA grade 10, Park ELA grade 11, SAT reading 400, ACT reading, ACT plan reading, AccuPlacer, right placer, PSAT 10 reading, PSAT NMSQT, I don't know what that is, ACT Aspire reading, ASVAB, or AFQT composite, and the math also. So those are your options. They also want you to note that SAT might be changed because they are determining new cut scores as well. So that's the state of our graduation requirements. All right, there's also a new Appropriations Act. I'm sure most of you know this. In the new Appropriations Act, it is called the Security Aid Program. And under that act, the districts must provide security services, equipment, and technology to the non-public schools within its boundaries and within the limits of the funds provided by the program. What this means is that the state is going to give you aid, and you're going to pass it through. The only problem with that is that the public might not realize if you have an additional $400,000, it's going to be on the district's budget. It's not going to be on the private school's budget. So just so that the public's aware when you're doing budgeting, that the district does end up paying for costs for private schools. This does not mean that the district is spending the money. It's a pass-through. The School Board Association asked that it go directly from the state to the private schools, but they turned that down. The cost in the new in the new bill that's coming up is roughly $25 per pupil in the private schools to cover the security services. The ongoing projects. In 2012, the state of New Jersey signed a contract with the federal government and accepted a $4 million grant to create a shared database with New Jersey colleges and universities and all programs overseen by the New Jersey Department of Labor and Workforce. This program is referred to as P-20W and is a data warehouse. So what they're going to do is track children from pre-K through college, through the workforce. And specifically, the information that they're going to use will be the K-12 New Jersey Smart Enrollment data, the K-12 New Jersey Smart Completion data, career and technical education data. The student unit from the colleges, they will use the student unit record enrollment data and completion data. Labor and workforce development will consist of unemployment insurance wage data, Workforce Investment Opportunity Act data, vocational rehabilitation program data, and consumer report card private training provider data. So all of the data will be tracked through all of these in a long-term experiment by the state. Obviously, there were a lot of concerns by very many parents. I don't think many people know that this program exists, but the ones who do are clearly not very happy about it. So I was the one put in charge of contacting the person in charge, wonderful woman, Elizabeth, Higher Education. She's the director of the P20W program. Very helpful. I asked her what the status was on this, if any student records were shared amongst the organizations at this point, and she said not at this point. It's moving forward. It's full steam ahead until they hear otherwise. There were 9 other states that were supposed to participate in this type of organization arrangement, but each of those states since then have created legislation that bars the state from sharing student information. I'm certain that there's going to be the same pushback coming at the legislature from the state of New Jersey. In fact, I know that there are parents currently working to ensure that we have legislation like the other 9 states that protect our student data. What we were told is that they're still working on the interface. They said, I asked if the parents would be notified and the districts would be informed that this was happening so that they could notify the parents. And they were told no. I was told no, that it's already in the New Jersey Smart Database, so they don't need permission and they don't need notification. In the bills, currently the parents are proposing to ask for also an opt-out so that if they can't stop the state from moving forward on P20W, that parents could at least be notified and make a decision if they can ask that their student information not be shared. So that's where we are in the legislation so far.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Liz.
much.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Questions or comments on any topic? All right. With that, we will move into workshop. Do we need a formal motion? Okay. To discuss budget and course offerings. We'll reconvene in 5 minutes.